Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss an article in the Express which lays out how it sees the challenge to Rishi Sunak. This is a paper which is very close to a lot of Tory MPs, so their insights can be useful here. According to their analysis, it may well be that the only thing saving Rishi Sunak right now is the absence of an obvious challenger. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So, according to the political editor of the Express, David Maddox, there are currently negotiations actively ongoing between the various factions of the far right as to how to bring Sunak down. There's no real hint in the article that there's any discussion to be had about whether or not to do it, but simply how they do it. The reshuffle this week, which included the sacking of Suella Braverman, was described as a declaration of war. Now, it was certainly a reshuffle which changed the basic dynamic of the cabinet, and not just because of Braverman's ejection, although that was a big part of it. The article quotes what it calls a senior Tory MP saying, "The one fact that colleagues need to grasp is that the message of Monday is that Sunak wants to destroy the right of the party." Now, what I would say to that is, if that were true, why haven't the rest of the party taken up arms to support Sunak in making it happen? I've got no special insights into the Conservative Party, so I have to rely on those who do expressing their reading of the situation publicly. But I am seeing absolutely no signs of a factional battle within the parliamentary party, a Tory civil war, if you will. All I'm seeing is a very simple row brewing. The far right, who've absolutely lost their stranglehold on the government after several years, and the most senior members of the government. And that's it. I mean, let's break the parliamentary party down. So there are a little bit over 100 Tory MPs who can be considered to be on the right of the party, or what we would call the far right. I think 115 is sometimes a number that is quoted. There's about 125 Tory MPs that are members of the government. Now, obviously, some of those members of the government, members of the government in general, don't get involved in public spats, except maybe the very most senior ones. But bear in mind, the Venn diagram will have some crossover. Some of those 125 Tory MPs in government will also be on the far right, but they won't realistically be agitated to bring Sunak down. So this should leave at least 110 Tory MPs, probably more realistically, who are not part of the far right, but they're also able to speak a bit more freely because they're on the back benches. They don't have to toe like a government line. Have they got anything to say? If so, they're whispering it. Are they just going to stand back and allow the extremists to deal the coup de grace to their party? After all, there's no way of challenging Sunak which does not result in even greater damage to the Conservative Party, but also the election prospects of individual MPs. If a confidence vote's triggered and Sunak wins, it's still bad. The results will definitely show he doesn't have a majority of MPs behind him. Majority Tory MPs doesn't matter. He needs a majority of MPs. It'll then be child's play for Labour to paint Sunak as like a lame duck Prime Minister. Delaying a general election for too long at that point just becomes more and more destructive for the Tories. And if Sunak is eventually brought down, either directly or indirectly by this move, then the Tories will be going for a fourth leader in the space of, just over a year? It will not only emphasise with the public the view of the party as clowns, but it will show that the Tories are once again squabbling while they're supposed to be dealing with the many crises which just don't seem to be getting better. The leadership contest itself will be a further exercise in self-destruction. I'm sure we remember that from last summer. It would not be obvious which is worse. Calling a general election now when the Tories are on for a record hiding, or allowing the leadership contest to put a raging lunatic in charge and make the situation even worse when the election does happen. Because make no mistake, the next leader will be a complete lunatic. There's no doubt about that. The Express is saying that there are negotiations taking place to decide the strategy. What they basically mean is to decide who they promote as their champion. It's not enough to sort of trigger the confidence vote and then all back their individual champions, because they'll just be too divided. There are enough of them, if they act in concert, to make sure that they can get their champion on the ballot to members. There are enough of them to do that, just about. They can't guarantee it if they split their votes multiple ways. And this time, by the way, there will have to be a ballot to members. Don't imagine, oh, they'll just do what they did last time and anoint a successor. No, there'll be too much opposition to it. And then the party members will dutifully back the most extreme candidate presented to them. They'll have learned nothing from Liz Truss, nothing at all. After all, they're fed on a regular diet from the right-wing media about how Truss was right and some shadowy cabal brought her down. And if someone tries to say, no, we need someone sensible, they will instantly say, well, wasn't Rishi Sunak supposed to be the sensible one? He seems to be making a right arse of it. How can you argue with that? No, they will go for the lunatic. I mean, what would you do if you were a Tory MP? The current polling puts the Tories on winning just 77 seats. Now, admittedly, the latest polling is completely chaotic. It's been thrown about by the events of the last week. I wouldn't trust any of the polls coming out this week. But a Tory MP looking at them will just see how dire it is. Do they think to themselves, well, it can't possibly get worse than this, so better to have the third leadership contest and hope for the best? They might do. Gift to Labour. There are several advantages to Labour with this outcome. The first is obvious. The public look on in horror at the dysfunctional Tories and decide, look, this is it. They can't be in government. They cannot seriously be in government. The second is that it will almost certainly mean going for an unpopular replacement with unpopular policies. Absolutely. Rishi Sunak's popularity has taken an absolute beating over the last year, but he's still seen as essentially serious and businesslike. You know, there are a lot of people out there who see him as essentially sound, but presiding over a broken party. A little bit like John Major. You know, the phrase was often used about John Major in the late 90s. Oh, he's nice enough chap, but he's terrible party. You know, and now I would say this isn't quite right. I don't think Sunak is fundamentally decent or fundamentally even trying. Sunak is in place for purely selfish reasons. But the perception, that public perception, is that he's a serious leader. You put in place someone like Suella Braverman or Liz Truss again, they're finished. You know, the problem with whomever the far right agree to support, it won't be either of those two, by the way, but whomever they do decide to support will have policies which are popular with them and the party membership, but not the swing voters. The reason why Sunak was unable to reverse the Tories' polling fortunes, apart from being crap at politics, was he kept promoting policies to appease the far right. They're really unpopular. Well, imagine how much less popular the party will become if they put someone in charge who believes in those policies, who is emboldened to put them in place because they've just won a leadership contest. Absolute gift to Labour, and the Lib Dems, come to that, of course. Mind you, as the article explains, it might not be Braverman who emerges as the challenger to Sunak. See, she's made enemies on the right of the party. I've said recently as well, myself, she's only focused on like the social policies, not the economic policies. But, you know, she did make enemies with Boris Johnson and Liz Truss loyalists as well. So if it comes to who they back, the crucial quote in the article was, colleagues won't move unless we have somebody to go, ready to go. So don't imagine there's letters going in at the moment, at least not enough to trigger this. Right? That will only happen when they've formed a view as to who they need to back. Doesn't sound like it'll be Braverman, too many enemies. Can't credibly be Truss again, so who? Priti Patel was the only name mentioned in this article which didn't seem to have objections tied to it. She remained loyal to Johnson. She appeals to the various factions in terms of both social and economic policy. So she appeals to like the Suella Braverman Brigade as well as the Liz Truss posse. The analysis leaves us with the prospect that the best time for the letters to go in would be January. Apart from anything else, it means the usual Tory winter crises, NHS winter crisis, cost of living winter crisis, all be in full swing in January, which gives them about 2 months to back a candidate. If they fail to do so, they cannot agree that anyone considered to be on the right of the party would definitely make it onto the ballot going to members, at which point all they would do in engineering a third change of leader would be to further damage their own chances of retaining their seats in the election for no benefit to themselves. Now, it may, of course, be that they just cannot agree on who to back, and that is that. That the unwillingness of what are, after all, uncompromising extremists means that Sunak continues to be safe by virtue of the weakness of the challenge against him. But this article, assuming it's done its homework correctly, gives the very strong impression that if the far right unite behind a single candidate, they are going to challenge Sunak in the new year. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.